What is going on, everybody, and welcome to a forecast video for this Monday, February 3rd, 2025. We have a lot going on in terms of severe weather across the country at the moment, so let's jump right into it. Starting off in Queensland's northeast, we can see the large, evident, massive cloud here on satellite imagery from the tropical depression that has been driving those extreme rainfall totals over the northeast coast between Cairns and Townsville over the past few days. Some of these towns have actually well and truly exceeded 1,000 millimeters of rainfall. One meter of falls in the past few days, so spare thought for those guys. Some of those towns have actually pushed as high as 1,400 millimeters currently, and in just a span of 3 or 4 days. These level of falls have really been quite exceptional, even for a wet season in Queensland, and have resulted in significant and major flooding for these areas, including flash and riverine, as well as inundation of properties. Now, jumping into the official Bureau of Meteorology's thunderstorm forecast for day 1 today, we can see they have outlined a similar area for severe thunderstorms likely, indicating a risk of any thunderstorms that do occur within the red outlined shaded region having a 30% or greater chance of becoming severe within 10 kilometers of any given point within that area. The main hazards today will include heavy to potentially locally intense rainfall that could cause significant or life-threatening flash flooding. Now, if we just quickly bring up the accumulated rainfall forecast models, jumping into the Axis G, we can see it's calling for potentially as high as 100 to 200 millimeters of widespread rainfall across that sort of same coastal area between now and Tuesday night, being midnight. Some of these areas you can see, in particular the brighter shaded regions, indicating as high as maybe 300 to 400 millimeters. If we just pull up the European forecast model for the same area drawn out to tomorrow around midnight, we can see it's calling for very similar effects. Probably not as widespread as the Axis G Bureau of Meteorology's forecast model, but we can definitely see that it is still calling for that depth of rainfall, potentially as high as 100 to 200 millimeters widespread across that northeast Queensland coastline, and maybe indicating areas, isolated areas, much higher, 300 to 400 millimeters possibly. But thankfully, the models do start to indicate some respite on the way as we draw into the end of the week. As this low system moves more inland, we can definitely expect rainfall to push westward inland and away from the coast. If we just bring up the live radar imagery from Townsville, we can see the rainfall was comparatively much more patchy than what it was yesterday, where it was essentially just dumping rainfall along this stretch of coastline and extending northward up here too. We do still have this fairly strong and widespread band of very heavy rainfall, especially around this Lucinda and Halifax area, and of course along this Herbert River area, which is already near reaching its 1967 record. Unfortunately though, as mentioned before, the forecast models do indicate that there's probably at least another 24 hours of this heavy rainfall to go, resulting in widespread accumulations of another 100 to 200 millimeters across these areas. Now, if we shift our attention to the exact opposite side of the country here in Western Australia, we've got some really intense heat building here today. In fact, temperatures could actually crack the 50 degree threshold today. So if we run the Axis G forecast model out to around midday to sort of 2 p.m. range, we can see we've got areas of 50 degrees appearing between that Exmouth Carnarvon area, just northwest of Shark Bay. We've got a west coast trough beginning to develop today, which will push into the remainder of the week and drag this sort of heat down. But we've also got ridging to the west of the country and the east, which is dragging in that really hot air from the interior. This 50 degree temp is actually realistic too. There's definitely a chance of these locations seeing 50 degrees too. In fact, officially we've only recorded 50 degree temperatures at controlled weather stations 7 times before in Western Australia, and it definitely has a real crack at it today. And in fact, if we take a wider look at things across the country, in fact, we can see a huge mass of hot air really just extending across a very large percentage of Western Australia, certainly into South Australia and parts of the NT. Very hot temperatures there across the area, 44, 46, very hot dry air being dragged around by this mid-level ridging in the center of the country, and of course the more westerly surface ridging here. These really hot temperatures are set to increase, especially in terms of a more widespread coverage of across Western Australia as the week progresses on. We can expect these temperatures, certainly not 50 degrees, but as high as 40 degrees to continue on throughout the week, pushing down towards the Perth area as the development of a west coast trough really drags that hot air back down towards the Perth metro area. So if we drag this out to around midday, sort of Tuesday, we can see the really hot temperatures starting to creep up. Perth around 36 degrees. Then if we drag out to Wednesday around midday, we can also see Perth looking very, very hot. Those sort of outer northeastern suburbs, but possibly around Bullsbrook area, could be seeing mid 44 degree sort of temperatures. And this looks to continue with the deepening of that west coast trough into Thursday, where again we're going to see that really, really hot temps across the large percentage of Western Australia. We can see that it certainly the trough certainly moves more eastward, but these interior temps still really, really hot here. Perth is probably slightly on the cooler side, but I would expect still in the sort of the low to mid 30s by Thursday. Now, remaining in Western Australia, we've certainly got another area of focus for severe weather with two tropical cyclones in the northwest Western Australian region. On screen now we've got Tropical Cyclone Taliah, which at the point of recording this video is already a Category 2 cyclone. We can see a very evident circulation occurring on true color satellite imagery. Very nice convection blowing up here, wrapping around into the system. If we just switch to band 13 IR, we can see even during daytime we've got still some significant convection occurring around the center of circulation, although there is this convective band here on the sort of western and northwestern quadrant, which has hampered it actually overnight for what was expected to give it a very good run to intensify rapidly. But it's been hampered certainly here by this band. However, this band should certainly clear off and allow for intensification to occur. Actually, rapid intensification is anticipated with this cyclone, potentially into Category 4 system. A lot of the ensemble models, GEFs and the Euro ensembles have fairly high probabilities of this system becoming a fairly intense tropical cyclone, a severe tropical cyclone. Obviously, with the Bureau of Meteorology forecasting the potential for a Category 4, as said before. But I think it's definitely on the cards to see this potentially even as high as a Category 5 cyclone, although thankfully this system is very unlikely to actually bother any sort of notable areas on the WA mainland coast. It is anticipated that it will probably just progress in that sort of bath water temperatures that we have in the northwest Australian coastline right now, near 30 degrees sea surface temperatures, and just continue as a fish storm until it eventually dies out within a week or so. It certainly already presents fairly well though on satellite imagery, and it does look relatively organized for a fairly new system. Currently it's actually producing 10-minute sustained winds of around 95 kilometers an hour, 50 knots, with the 3-second wind gusts up to 130 kilometers an hour or 70 knots. Central pressure is currently around 980 millibars. Now, remaining in the Western Australian area of responsibility, we actually have another tropical cyclone, Tropical Cyclone Vince, which has formed. It's much further west of the northwest Australian coastline comparatively to Taliah. However, this tropical cyclone is much closer to the sort of Cocos-Keeling Islands, although it's probably unlikely that any sort of effects will be felt there. Currently, this system is a Category 1 tropical cyclone, expected to intensify into a Category 2 system by around tomorrow or potentially the next day. Certainly, again, though, it's presenting fairly well. It's got a very nice sort of pinwheel structure to it, already producing 10-minute sustained winds of 75 kilometers an hour up to 100 kilometer an hour gust. Central pressure down to 990 millibars. Expect that to certainly drop and increase in wind speeds as the day goes on into tomorrow. But thankfully, very unlikely to see any sort of effects to the Cocos-Keeling Islands, as it's already almost sort of west of that region. And that's pretty much going to wrap up the forecast for today, February 3rd. Unfortunately, though, the Townsville situation doesn't look particularly great as it stands. Although the rainfall respite does appear on the cards, there's certainly a lot of devastating flooding effects occurring, and very unfortunately, a fatality to an emergency service worker in in the SES. So please spare a thought for those guys today, and certainly heading into the coming weeks for what will be a very, very tough period for those guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to stay tuned for further severe weather updates, certainly through this summer period. Appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll catch you in further forecasts.